likely to be stabbed to death than they are to be shot to death with a rifle of any kind. Despite frequent claims that semi-automatic rifles are the weapon of choice for mass public shooters, in the last decade, over half of these shootings have been carried out with handguns alone. On the other hand, semi-automatic rifles like the...
Okay, friends, welcome once again to Look and Live. You're here with Pastor James Devallon, and this is another reaction video. I get to share my perspective on this one. We are going to Heritage today, the Heritage Foundation. I think they have some very nice videos there. I've listened to a number of their discussions before.
Chairman Nadler,
I find it to be very interesting. By the way, if you happen to be new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more of my notification upload. Comments below, share a thought perspective with me. Yeah, let me know what you think about this video, and also how did you come to discover our YouTube channel, and what do you like about us so far? All right, with that being said, let's see if we can get into the heart of the message here. Get my camera back. So her name, so her name is Amy Swearer. Okay. She's going to talk about guns. Here's the reason why I think this is significant. Especially recently, we've seen all these mass shootings, and my heart breaks because these things are not something we should ever become used to. You know, we don't want to become desensitized to these level of crimes. Never should it become normal when we see these things happening in the world. We should do as much as possible to reduce, to somewhat alleviate this and minimize these things. But nevertheless, it's part of the pain and issues of our culture, and it must be addressed some way, somehow. But one of the things that I have a problem with during these times, whenever there's a mass shooting, there's a lot of people, especially in politics, they like to jump up and say, get rid of all these guns, get rid of these types of guns, AR15 particularly, they're trying to take that away. But I'm like, I'm not sure if getting rid of the guns are the solutions here, because guns don't kill people, people kill people, right? When you talk about the issues that are happening, you know, before a mass shooter goes on and carry out his deed. But nevertheless, I think Amy does an excellent job in this one, because she goes on to explain things in a way that I think a lot of people haven't thought about before. So with that being said, let's now get into the heart of this message. Are you ready?
Chairman Nadler, Ranking Member Collins, and distinguished members of Congress. My name is Amy Swearer, and I am the Senior Legal Policy Analyst at the Heritage Foundation's Ed Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Just as doctors can only recommend an effective treatment plan if they first form a correct diagnosis based on accurate assessment of the symptoms, policy analysts and policy makers must have an accurate understanding of the societal problems they are seeking to combat. Unfortunately, too many policymakers appear completely uninformed about basic factual realities related to guns and gun violence. Don't misunderstand me. We all want safer communities, but the characteristics distinguishing so-called assault weapons from non-assault weapons are not factors like caliber, lethality, or rate of fire. Proposals to ban scary-looking features like barrel shrouds or pistol grips are, for all intents and purposes, proposals to force law-abiding citizens to own guns that are harder for them to handle, harder to fire accurately, and more likely to cause them injuries, even when they are being used for lawful purposes.
Interesting.
Moreover, semi-automatic rifles are not a meaningful driving factor behind rates of gun violence. Two-thirds of gun deaths in this country are suicides, where the type of firearm is essentially irrelevant. With respect to gun crimes, over 90% are committed with handguns. Rifles of any kind are definitively used in only 3 to 4% of gun homicides every year, and an American citizen is 4 times as likely to be stabbed to death than they are to be shot to death with a rifle of any kind.
Wow. Wow. Are you listening to these facts? These are the facts that are oftentimes kept out of sight in the discussion for gun laws and restriction and all that, right? Which I think we should have those discussions and figure out ways to reduce gun use, especially from people who could potentially use it to do evil, right? To carry out a mass shooting or a spraying killer. I get it. But these factors must also be considered. She is talking about things here that I don't hear the other side or the anti-gun advocates ever address. And to me, that's very concerning, because facts don't care about our feelings, right? So this is where the facts, we just have to actually say, hey, give me the facts, and then let's figure out ways to address these issues in the best way possible, while we respect rightly gun owners, people that are doing it the right way. And we need to figure out ways to take guns from the hands of criminals or people who could potentially use it to do harm. Good points.
Despite frequent claims that semi-automatic rifles are the weapon of choice for mass public shooters, in the last decade, over half of these shootings have been carried out with handguns alone. On the other hand, semi-automatic rifles like the AR15 are so well suited for defensive action against threats in a civilian context that the Department of Homeland Security quite literally designates them as personal defense weapons for law enforcement officers. It is little wonder, then, that millions of law-abiding citizens in this country also choose these types of semi-automatic rifles as their own personal defense weapons.
And I did a video, I think it's Colleen Noir. Colleen Noir went on to explain 5 reasons why semi-automatic rifle, is it even semi-automatic rifle? No, it's not even the same thing. It's AR15. Why there's a need for that, and it's a good video to listen to and watch, because you're like, after you watch that video, you're like, I'm gonna put a link to that video. What time is it? 7 minutes? Okay, in 7 minutes I'll put a link to the video and you can check it out, because it speaks volume to what she's referring to. So yeah, the facts are very strong here.
Far from needing to be protected from these rifles, law-abiding Americans benefit when they are allowed to defend themselves with them, particularly in situations where they are outnumbered. Just last week, a homeowner in Rockdale County, Georgia, relied on his scary-looking semi-automatic assault weapon to defend himself against 3 masked teens armed with at least 1 handgun who tried to rob him and other residents in their own front yard. Ironically, the rifle deemed an assault weapon by many in this room was used defensively to protect innocent people against assault, while the perpetrators used a non-assault weapon offensively to commit actual assault. Importantly, some of the most famous examples of the
I wish they will take time to highlight times when guns are used to help and defend people. There have been a few cases. I think the guy who stopped the mass shooter at the mall, I think it's Greenland or Green Park Mall. That was amazing, right? But still, he was kind of maligned because he was not supposed to bring a gun in the mall anyway. But I'm like, aren't you glad that he did? Because he saved many lives that day. But and I've seen other videos as well where a lot of rifle gun owner used weapon to defend their families and children and so on. And it's something to consider, because if a criminal comes to your home, and you're not armed, how are you going to protect your family from? You just never know. These are things we got to talk about. Calling the cops is great, but 6 to 9 minutes waiting for the police, that could be the end of your life and your family. These are not things to play with. I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, but you're not gonna hurt my family. I'm not okay with that. I will pray for you, but I will make sure my children and my family, their lives are protected from your criminality. That I can't accept either. So hey, this woman is doing it.
Defensive use of assault weapons by civilians come from scenarios where the government has been either unable or unwilling to defend entire communities from large-scale civil unrest. During the 1992 LA riots, for example, law enforcement was nowhere to be found as hundreds of looters ransacked Koreatown. Ordinary store owners like Richard Ree and his employees took it upon themselves to defend their livelihoods from lawlessness, using, in many cases, semi-automatic rifles. Similar stories emerged during the civil unrest in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. There are some here today who still genuinely don't understand why or how anyone would need such scary-looking rifles for purposes other than mass murder. And so I have permission from my mother to explain it to you by partially embarrassing her. My mother did not grow up with firearms, and they will never be her favorite thing in the world. In fact, she'd never handled a firearm until I took her to the range for the first time several years ago. Now, I love my mother, but like every other novice with a handgun, she was quite bad. I mean, she struggled to hit a stationary target from 6 yards out under ideal conditions.
Wow.
And then she picked up an AR-15. And I watched my mother put a fist-sized grouping of lead in the center mass of a target from 20 yards out.
Wow.
That is why law-abiding citizens buy millions of these firearms. When accuracy and stopping power matter, they are simply better. Americans use firearms to defend themselves between 500,000 and 2 million times every year. God forbid that my mother is ever faced with a scenario where she has to stop a threat to her life. But if she is, I hope politicians protected by professional armed security didn't strip her of the right to use the firearm she can handle most competently. Frankly, I hope she has in her hands the scariest looking assault weapon she can find, so that we can both be confident in her ability to end the threat. Thank you.
Drop the mic. How strong were her argument? How strong were these arguments of hers? Because what do you do with that? You know, for those of us who are anti-gun by any means necessary, I don't think we understand what we're talking about. Most people actually haven't done their study and research of how governments can turn tyrannical. They can turn on their civilians. Has happened many times before. And also criminals, they don't care about gun laws. Criminals don't get converted. You know, the more guns you take away from people to defend themselves away from criminals, is the more power criminals have to do their dirty deeds. Who's gonna stop them now? Most mass shooters don't want to confront a man with a gun. Most mass shooters will tell you, if they could speak, they will tell you that is not something that they are looking forward to. Their goal is to take as many lives down as possible, never to confront a person with a gun. I think another thing to keep in mind, these are some evil days. And I think a lot of people don't realize that we're not living in paradise. This is not it. I certainly believe, you know, a time is coming when God establishes his kingdom in the earth made new, of course, and things are gonna be okay. You know, I'm gonna get you a verse here, but until then, we have a responsibility to protect our home and to protect our families. And one of the ways we have to do that is we have the Second Amendment, which is one of the means by which we get to protect the ones we love from abusiveness and so on, right? So much more could be said. I think Amy Swearer did an excellent job with that one. Let me get you a Bible verse and bring this video to an end. That's all I can simply say to that. It's just, I would advocate that you need to protect your home. If you're a man, you have families, you need to protect your home. You need to protect yourself by any means necessary. In this country, we are afforded the right to bear arms. So you have to know the law of your city. I would say be properly trained and have a level of self-control. If there's any form of mental illness that you have not addressed, you should wait until then. Or by any means necessary, you shouldn't just lay flat and trust the government and the policemen to do their job when you supposed to make sure you're taking care of those within your own walls, primarily. So, all right, I'm gonna get you a verse here. I'm thinking of the verse, but I'm looking for the passage. I found it. All right, Ephesians chapter 5 is where I'm thinking about. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 17. And it reads, wherefore, yeah, there we go. Let's okay, look therefore carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not foolish, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. That's a different version for me. I'm so used to the King James version. When I'm trying to read from a different version, it throws me off. But you get the point of what he's saying here. Like, there is to be a redeeming the time, which means stop wasting time. And also be aware that we are living in evil days. So primarily there is a spiritual preparation that needs to take place. But secondarily, you gotta make sure that you are ready to confront evil when it comes knocking at your door. Unfortunately, we just don't know who's next. We just don't know how Satan is going to confront you and your family. You gotta be ready for that. You just don't know when the government is gonna go crazy. You don't know, the next mass shooter, you might be the guy who has the means to stop it. So these are things to consider, to think about. I don't think we should live in fear, but I don't think we should be naive either. I don't think we should consistently be looking over our shoulder, but at the same time, we shouldn't walk around like blind people. Like the days are evil, the Bible says. These are some evil times. Men are becoming more wicked by the hour. Okay, look what's happening in our world. I will say more than any other time, you need to protect your home and your family now. Christian or not. It's just the right thing to do. Satan is walking our streets right now. He's taking the minds of people and he is using them to carry out mass murders. This is what's going on. So how do we just sit back and not, yeah, we gotta pray, yeah, we gotta preach, but we gotta protect ourselves as well. That's where I stand when it comes to that. I don't think it's unchristian or doubtful or unfaithful to believe that. It's very right to do this. It's just your right. I mean, it's common sense. Did you hear the girl talk? That was good enough for me. Anyway, share your thought and perspective with me. We can end this video right here. I don't mean to drag it in anymore. I had to look for my Bible verse. I knew it was somewhere, but I found it. Thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more of my notification upload. Comments below, share your thought and perspective with me. As always, remember to look unto Jesus to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye.